Welcome to the first episode of a new series we like to call Origins. In this series, we will be exploring some of the most unique and underappreciated musicians in history who have contributed to the foundations of music as we know it today. Join us as we shine a light through the cracks and crevices of history to keep these people and their stories alive. Today, we are delving into the life and artistry of Sister Rosetta Tharpe, aka the Godmother of rock and roll. Tharpe, born in Arkansas with a family named Newbin, was immersed in music as she grew up in a family of religious singers. At just 4 years old, she first held a guitar in her hands, and by the age of 6, she began performing with her mother, Katie Bell Newbin, in a traveling group. Eventually, Tharpe and her mother landed in Chicago, where Tharpe continued to perform spiritual music and expanded her horizons, drawing influence from gospel music, New Orleans jazz, and Delta blues to form her own unique musical style. Tharpe quickly moved on when she relocated with her mother in New York City and landed a spot at the Cotton Club in 1938, setting her career into motion. Tharpe's unorthodox style and unique voice attracted fans. However, being a female guitarist and pursuing both secular and religious ideas in her music during the 1930s had its challenges, and somewhat disconnected her from an alarmed gospel community. In 1938, she recorded her very first single, titled Rock Me, which fused gospel with rock and roll. Rock Me was followed by 3 other songs titled That's All, My Man and I, and Lonesome Road.
I want to tell you the natural facts that a man don't understand a good book right, and that's all.
Tharpe's clever lyricism pushed the boundaries of socially accepted ideas as she delved into themes of love and sexuality. Rock Me specifically showcased Tharpe's unique style and reinforced the shift in popular music that followed in the wake of her fearlessness in expressing and living her truth. Undoubtedly due to her fearless approach, Tharpe was soon collaborating with huge artists of the time, including the Dixie Hummingbirds and Duke Ellington. Soon after, in 1941, she went on the road with a swing band called the Lucky Millinder Orchestra, with whom she recorded I Want a Tall Skinny Papa. During this time, Tharpe was gaining traction, and in 1945, in a collaboration with Sammy Price, she recorded Strange Things Happening Every Day, one of her biggest hits and the first gospel single to make it to the R&B Top 10 charts. The song provided commentary on world events relevant to Tharpe's time, such as the end of World War II and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima. Many were drawn to her songwriting style, and she even became an idol to black soldiers fighting in the Second World War. Gail Wald outlines this in her biography of Rosetta Tharpe, titled Shout, Sister, Shout. Despite her success, Tharpe still faced many hardships, largely correlating with racism in the 1940s. While she was on tour, for example, many places such as hotels and restaurants remained segregated, which meant Tharpe had to wait at the back door when picking up her food, and she had to sleep on the bus rather than in a hotel room. Tharpe later met a singer named Mary Knight, with whom she recorded Up Above My Head and went on tour. The duo included Tharpe on vocals and guitar, and Knight, who played the piano and sang. The pair formed a romantic relationship, which Wald referred to as an open secret in Shout, Sister, Shout. Over the years, Tharpe had had several relationships with both women and men, and although she was upfront about her sexuality in the industry, she largely kept it hidden from the public. In 1950, Tharpe and Knight split, and in 1951, Tharpe married Russell Morrison, her manager, at Griffith Stadium in Washington, D.C., with over 20,000 paying guests in attendance. Although Tharpe and Knight no longer officially played together as a duo, they occasionally reunited on stage for songs such as You Gotta Move, which showcased a gospel technique called call and response, which later gained popularity in soul music. Tharpe's popularity later began to dwindle, and the scene in the U.S. was soon taken over primarily by young white men who continued to experiment with the sounds she introduced. Her career began to pick up speed again in 1957 when she expanded her horizons and started playing to audiences across Europe who had largely not been exposed to blues and gospel music in person. In 1964, Tharpe delivered a performance on a train station platform in Manchester, which later became one of her most iconic shows. Tharpe made an entrance as she arrived at the station on a horse-drawn carriage and stepped up to the platform with enthusiasm. She then performed Didn't It Rain, a performance that any audience member or viewer could agree Tharpe poured her whole heart and soul into. This iconic and powerful performance even became a YouTube sensation decades later. In 1973, Tharpe died at the age of 58 from a stroke, in a home she had shared with her mother. Up until her death, she had continued to tour actively in Europe, and her last known recording was created in 1970. Although Tharpe's career was groundbreaking and her contribution to modern music legendary, the unfortunate reality was that Tharpe did not receive nearly as much recognition as her male peers did in the 60s and the 70s. Her vast contribution to modern-day music is illustrated in the ways she influenced the lives and artistry of other musicians, such as Little Richard, Carl Perkins, Chuck Berry, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and even Elvis Presley. Chuck Berry once said that his career was, quote, one long Sister Rosetta Tharpe impersonation. When asked how she compared to male artists of her time, Tharpe was often cited responding with a statement such as, quote, can't no man play like me, I play better than a man. Her spirit and energy comes alive each time a musician plugs in their guitar and gets lost in the moment. As Wald said, quote, when you see Elvis Presley singing early in his career, imagine he is channeling Sister Rosetta Tharpe. She continued by saying, quote, it's not an image I think we're used to thinking about when we think of rock and roll history. We don't think about the black woman behind the young white man. Sister Rosetta Tharpe, the godmother of rock and roll, persisted through unjust and adverse circumstances, fighting against all odds, and whilst she never received nearly enough recognition or respect, she played a very important role in redefining the industry. A strong, queer black woman breaking societal norms outside of just music, who was invaluable in influencing the next generation of musicians and artists. Thank you so much for joining us as we delve deeper into the life and artistry of Sister Rosetta Tharpe. She will forever be the origin of so many individuals' musical journeys, and it is up to you to help keep her story alive for years to come. Hit the subscribe button and bell icon below so you don't miss new episodes. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and comment.